Imagine pretending you can't hear, just to discover who truly respects you when they think you're not listening. Daniel Harrington, a brilliant but guarded CEO, fakes deafness after a mysterious incident, not to escape the world, but to finally hear the truth hidden behind polite smiles and corporate loyalty. He thought he'd uncover betrayal in the boardroom. He never expected to find it in his own engagement ring. His fiancée, Olivia, whispers cruelties she'd never say to his face. His business partner laughs at his weakness behind closed doors, but amid the venom and pretense, there's one voice he didn't anticipate. Soft, careful, and heartbreakingly kind. Her name is Sophie, a night nurse hired to assist him. She doesn't know he hears every word. Every apology she whispers when she thinks he's asleep. Every prayer she says for his recovery. Every tear she hides when she thinks no one's watching. Stay with me until the end. This story will break your heart and put it back together. And if you've ever wondered who would love you when you had nothing left to offer, hit like and subscribe, because this one will change how you see loyalty forever. The accident wasn't supposed to happen. Daniel Harrington had built an empire on precision, contracts signed in silence, deals closed with a glance. Words were tools, and he wielded them like weapons, sharp, deliberate, never wasted. But on a cold October evening, precision failed him. He was leaving the office late as usual when the elevator malfunctioned. The drop was only 2 floors, but the impact was enough. Enough to fracture his ribs, enough to send him into shock, enough to make the doctors worry about his hearing. Temporary auditory trauma, they said, could last weeks, could be permanent. Daniel heard every word. He just didn't correct them. Because in that hospital bed, staring at the white ceiling under fluorescent lights, a thought crept into his mind like smoke under a door. What do people say when they think I can't hear them? Olivia arrived within the hour, her heels clicking against the tile like a countdown. She sat beside him, took his hand and smiled, the same smile she wore at charity galas. "Oh, darling," she whispered, leaning close. "You'll be fine. You have to be." He watched her lips move. He heard every syllable. Then she turned to the doctor just outside the room and her voice changed. "How long until he's back to normal? We have the merger gala in 3 weeks. I can't have him looking weak." Daniel's chest tightened, not with pain, with clarity. He didn't respond, didn't blink, didn't let her see the crack forming in the armor he'd worn for years. When the doctor explained his condition to Olivia, she nodded sympathetically. When she returned to his bedside, she spoke louder, slower, as if he were a child. "Can you hear me?" He stared past her. She sighed. And for the first time in 5 years together, Daniel saw her clearly. The mansion felt different when he returned. Quieter, yes, but not because of his supposed deafness. It was the kind of quiet that hides things, the kind where people speak freely because they believe they're safe. Daniel sat in his study, hands folded, eyes half closed. His assistant, Marcus, stood near the door, phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, he's out of it," Marcus said, voice low but not low enough. "Doctor says he might not hear again. Honestly, might be a blessing. Guy's been wound too tight for years." Daniel's jaw tightened. Marcus continued. "Olivia's already talking about taking over his public appearances. Smart move, honestly. She's better with people anyway." Better with people. The phrase echoed. Daniel had always known Marcus was ambitious. But loyal, he'd thought. Grateful even. He'd been wrong. That night, Olivia hosted a small dinner. For moral support, she said. Daniel sat at the head of the table, silent, while his fiancée and his closest friends spoke around him as if he were furniture. It's tragic, really, Olivia said, sipping wine, but we'll manage. I've already spoken to the board about interim leadership. Interim? Someone asked. Well, she said, glancing at Daniel with something like pity, we don't know how much of him will come back. Even if his hearing returns, the stress, the confidence, that might be gone. She reached over and patted his hand. But I'll stand by him. That's what love is, isn't it? Daniel didn't move. Inside, something broke. Not his heart. His faith. Sophie arrived the next morning. The agency had sent her. A qualified caregiver, they said, experienced with patients recovering from trauma. She was younger than he expected, mid-20s maybe. Dark hair pulled into a simple bun, no makeup, scrubs that looked worn but clean. She carried a canvas bag over one shoulder and moved through the mansion like she was trying not to disturb the air. Mr. Harrington, she said softly, standing in the doorway of his bedroom. I'm Sophie, I'll be helping you for the next few weeks. He didn't look at her. She didn't seem to mind. I know you can't hear me, she continued, stepping inside, but I'll still talk to you. I think it helps. Even if you don't hear the words, maybe you'll feel that someone's here. She set her bag down and knelt beside his chair, meeting his eyes, not with pity, but with something gentler. Respect. I'm going to take care of you, she said. Not because I have to, because everyone deserves that. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to speak. He didn't. The days blurred together. Sophie worked in near silence. She helped him with physical therapy exercises, brought him meals, adjusted his pillows. She never spoke down to him, never raised her voice unnecessarily, but she did talk, quietly, to herself mostly. Okay, Mr. Harrington, she'd say, folding his blanket. One more day closer to feeling like yourself again. Or, I made you tea. Chamomile. My mom used to say it helps the soul as much as the body. Or once, while adjusting the curtains, you have a beautiful view. I bet you don't even notice it anymore. That happens, doesn't it? When you have everything, you stop seeing it. She paused. I hope you see it again someday. Daniel closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Shame. Olivia rarely visited during the day, but when she did, the change was instant. Sophie, right? She said one afternoon, breezing into the room. Make sure he takes his medication, and keep the press away if they call. We don't need rumors. Yes, ma'am, Sophie said. Olivia leaned over Daniel, kissed his forehead, and smiled for no one but herself. The moment she left, Sophie let out a long breath. She doesn't see you, does she? Sophie whispered, wiping down the bedside table. She sees what you were, not who you are. She glanced at him. But you're still in there. I know you are. Daniel's hands curled into fists. She knows. No. She believes. And that, somehow, was worse. 1 week in, Marcus came by. He stood near the window, talking on the phone, assuming Daniel couldn't hear. Olivia's handling it well, Marcus said. Honestly, between you and me, this might be the best thing for the company. Daniel was brilliant but stubborn. We can finally move forward without his ego in the way. Sophie, folding laundry in the corner, froze. Marcus didn't notice. Yeah, she's already positioning herself. Smart woman. If Daniel doesn't recover fully, she'll take the reins. And if he does, well, she'll make sure he's too grateful to fight back. Sophie's hands trembled. Marcus left. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the door. Then she turned to Daniel. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said, voice shaking. "But if you can, I'm so sorry. You deserve better than this." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly and went back to work. Daniel watched her, and for the first time since the accident, he felt something stir. Not anger, not betrayal. Hope. Sophie didn't ask questions. That's what Daniel noticed first. Olivia asked constantly about his recovery timeline, about when he'd return to work, about whether the board had called. Marcus asked about strategies, about deals left hanging, about whether Daniel remembered signing certain documents before the accident. But Sophie, she just existed beside him, quietly, carefully. Like she understood that silence wasn't emptiness, it was space to heal. She arrived every morning at 7, let herself in through the side entrance and moved through the mansion like a ghost. Not because she was timid, but because she seemed to carry an instinct for when to be present and when to disappear. Daniel watched her more than he meant to. The way she touched things, gently as if the world were more fragile than people realized. The way she folded his blankets with the same care she'd give to something precious. The way she paused sometimes, staring out the window at the garden, her expression distant and soft. She was thinking about something. Someone, maybe. He wanted to know what. It was the small things that undid him. One morning, Sophie brought him tea. She set it on the table beside him, then hesitated. "I hope you don't mind," she said softly, speaking as if he could hear, because she always did. "I added honey instead of sugar. My mom used to say, honey is kinder. I don't know if that makes sense." She laughed quietly at herself. "Anyway, I thought you might like it." She turned to leave. Daniel's hand moved, just slightly, fingers brushing the edge of the cup. Sophie stopped. She looked back at him, eyes wide, hopeful. Did you want something else?" He didn't move again. Her shoulders fell, just a fraction. "Okay," she whispered. "That's okay." She left. Daniel lifted the cup and tasted the tea. It was perfect. And he hated himself for not being able to tell her. Olivia's visits became performances. She'd arrive in the afternoon, always with someone, photographers, journalists, friends from her social circle. She'd sit beside Daniel, hold his hand, and speak about their journey with tears in her eyes that never quite fell. "He's my rock," she'd say. "Even now. Especially now." The cameras loved her. Daniel watched, silent, as she built a narrative around his suffering. The devoted fiancée. The woman who stayed. The saint in Louboutin. One afternoon, after the photographers left, Olivia stood by the window, scrolling through her phone. Sophie was in the corner, organizing his medications. "You know," Olivia said, not looking up, "you're doing a wonderful job, Sophie, really. Daniel's lucky to have someone so dedicated." "Thank you," Sophie said quietly. "I mean it." Olivia's smile was sharp. It's rare to find people who are content with simpler roles. Not everyone needs to be in the spotlight, you know. Some people are just meant to serve. Sophie's hands stilled. Daniel's jaw clenched. Olivia didn't notice either. "Anyway," she continued, "make sure he's ready for the gala next month. I need him looking presentable. The board is watching." She left without saying goodbye to Daniel. Sophie stood there for a long moment, staring at the bottles in her hands. Then she looked at Daniel. "She doesn't deserve you," Sophie whispered. She seemed startled by her own words. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. I shouldn't have..." But she didn't take it back. Daniel wanted to reach for her. He didn't. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Daniel was in his study, sitting in the leather chair by the window when Marcus arrived. He didn't knock. He never did anymore. "Olivia wants to move up the wedding," Marcus said, pacing. "She thinks it'll be good for optics, show stability. The board's getting nervous about leadership, and if you two are married, she can legally step in if needed." He paused. "Honestly, Daniel, it might be the smart play. You're not coming back from this, not fully, and she's willing to carry the weight. That's more than most would do." Daniel's fingers curled around the armrest. Marcus kept talking. "She's already drafted a power of attorney. Just needs your signature, or, well, your mark. Whatever you can manage." He pulled papers from his briefcase and set them on the desk. "I'll leave these here, think about it. Or, don't think. Just trust us. We're doing this for you." Marcus left. Daniel stared at the papers. Sophie appeared in the doorway minutes later, carrying fresh linens. She saw the documents, saw the tension in Daniel's shoulders, and quietly set the linens down. "Mr. Harrington," she said softly, "are you okay?" He didn't move. She stepped closer. "I know you can't hear me, but I see you. I see how tense you get when they're here. I see how you relax when they leave." She knelt beside his chair, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what they're asking you to do, but you don't have to do anything you don't want to, even if they think you can't refuse." Her hand hovered near his, not quite touching. "You still have a choice." Daniel's breath caught. She believed he couldn't hear. But she spoke to him like he mattered anyway, like his silence wasn't surrender. That night, Olivia hosted a dinner party. Daniel was brought downstairs, positioned at the head of the table like a relic. Sophie helped him into the chair, her touch gentle, her expression unreadable. "Thank you, Sophie," Olivia said, dismissive. "You can go." "I'll stay nearby," Sophie said, "in case he needs anything." "He'll be fine. We'll take care of him." Sophie hesitated, glanced at Daniel, then nodded and retreated to the kitchen. The dinner unfolded like theatre. Olivia laughed, charmed, told stories about Daniel's brilliance, past tense, always past tense. The guests offered sympathies, admired her strength, toasted to their future. And through it all, Daniel sat silent, watching, listening. One guest leaned toward Marcus. "Do you think he understands any of this?" Marcus shrugged. "Hard to say, but does it matter? Olivia's got it handled." Another voice, quieter. "It's sad, really. He built an empire, and now he's a symbol," someone else finished. "A cautionary tale." Laughter rippled around the table, soft, polite, cruel. Daniel's hands trembled beneath the table. Then from the kitchen he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it. Sophie, crying. The guests left near midnight. Olivia retired upstairs without a word. The mansion fell silent. Daniel sat alone in the study, staring at nothing, when Sophie appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were red, but her expression was steady. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't have stayed. I couldn't leave you alone with them." She stepped inside. "I heard what they said. I know you couldn't, but I did, and it made me so angry." Her voice cracked. "You're not a symbol. You're not a cautionary tale. You're a person, and they treat you like you're already gone." She wiped her eyes. "I don't know if you'll ever hear again. I don't know if you'll ever be the man you were, but whoever you are now, you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be respected." She moved closer, knelt beside his chair. "And I see you, Mr. Harrington. Every day. I see you." Daniel's chest tightened. His hand moved, slowly, deliberately, and rested on hers. Sophie froze. Her breath caught. "Mr. Harrington." His fingers squeezed gently. Once. She stared at their hands, tears spilling over. "You're still in there," she whispered. "I knew it. I knew you were." Daniel didn't speak. But for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel alone. The next morning, Sophie arrived earlier than usual. She found Daniel in the garden, standing by the fountain, his back to the house. "Mr. Harrington?" she called softly. He turned, and for the first time, he looked directly at her. Really looked. Sophie's breath caught. "You heard me last night," she whispered. "Didn't you?" Daniel said nothing, but his eyes said everything. Sophie stepped closer, her voice trembling. "How long?" Silence. "Since the beginning?" He nodded. "Once." Sophie's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." She stepped back, shaking her head. "You heard everything, everything I said, everything they said." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of something fiercer. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Daniel's gaze held hers, and in that moment she understood. "You wanted to know the truth," she whispered. He nodded. Sophie exhaled, a shaky, broken sound. "And now you do." Sophie didn't come back the next day. Daniel sat in his study, staring at the door, waiting for the sound of her footsteps in the hall. Soft, careful, deliberate. They never came. Olivia noticed at breakfast. "Where's the nurse?" she asked, barely looking up from her phone. Marcus shrugged. "Called in. Said she needed a personal day." "Perfect timing," Olivia muttered. "The gala's in 2 weeks, and she decides to take a break?" Daniel's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "Get someone else," Olivia said. "We can't have gaps in his care, not now." "Already called the agency," Marcus replied. "They're sending someone tomorrow." Daniel set the cup down. He didn't want someone else. Sophie returned 3 days later. She arrived at dawn, before anyone else was awake, and found Daniel in the garden again. Same spot, same stillness. She stopped a few feet away. "I almost didn't come back," she said quietly. He didn't turn around. "I kept thinking about what you did, pretending, listening, watching everyone reveal who they really are." Her voice wavered. "And I kept wondering, what did you hear when I spoke?" Daniel turned slowly. Their eyes met. "Did you hear someone naive?" she continued. "Someone foolish enough to talk to a man she thought couldn't hear her? Someone who said things she'd never have the courage to say otherwise?" She took a shaky breath. "Or did you hear the truth?" Daniel stepped toward her. Sophie didn't move. "I came back," she whispered, "because I realized something. You didn't just hear what people said, you heard what they meant. The difference between words and intention." She paused. "And I need to know. What did my words mean to you?" Daniel stopped inches from her. For a long moment he just looked at her, really looked, the way he'd been doing in secret for weeks. Then slowly he lifted his hand and signed. Everything. Sophie's eyes widened. You know sign language? He nodded. She laughed, a broken, bewildered sound. Of course you do. Daniel signed again, slower this time. You saw me when no one else did. Sophie's breath caught. I saw a man who was suffering, she whispered. A man who was surrounded by people, but completely alone. You saw more than that. What did I see? Daniel hesitated, then signed, someone worth caring for. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. You are, she said. You are worth caring for, not because of your money, or your company, or your name. Because of who you are when all of that is stripped away. She stepped closer. But I can't do this. Daniel's expression shifted. I can't be part of whatever plan you're making, Sophie continued. I can't be the person who helps you expose them or get revenge or... That's not what I want. Then what do you want? Daniel's hands moved carefully, precisely, to stop pretending. Sophie stared at him. You want to tell them you can hear? No, her brow furrowed. Then what? I want to stop pretending I don't feel anything. The words hung between them. Sophie took a step back. Mr. Harrington. Daniel, she corrected, voice shaking. You're engaged, you're recovering, you're not thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly. This isn't real, Sophie said, wrapping her arms around herself. You're grateful. That's all. You're confusing gratitude with... Don't tell me what I feel. The force of the signs made her stop. Daniel's jaw tightened. I've spent 3 years building a life with someone who doesn't see me, someone who sees a title, a bank account, a stepping stone. He paused. You see me. The parts I forgot existed. That doesn't mean... I know what it means. Sophie shook her head. I'm your nurse. I'm nobody. I can't... You're not nobody. To your world, I am. Daniel stepped closer. Then maybe I don't want that world anymore. Sophie's breath hitched. You don't mean that. Try me. She left again. Not for days this time, just hours. But when she returned that evening, something had shifted. She moved through the mansion differently, less like a ghost, more like someone who'd made a decision. Daniel found her in the library, standing by the window, arms crossed. I talked to my mom, she said without turning around. Told her everything. Well, almost everything. Daniel waited. She said I was an idiot. A pause. She said any man who pretends to be deaf just to hear the truth is either brilliant or insane, and any woman who walks away from someone who sees her clearly is a coward. Sophie finally turned. I'm not a coward, Daniel. He stepped into the room. But I'm also not stupid, she continued. You live in a world I don't understand. You're engaged to a woman who will destroy anyone who gets in her way, and your best friend is already planning how to carve up your empire. She met his eyes. If I stay, if I do this, I need to know it's not just because I'm safe, or kind, or different from them. Daniel moved closer. Then ask me. Ask you what? Why you? Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. Why me? Daniel's hands moved slowly, deliberately. Because you cried when you thought I couldn't hear. Because you apologized to furniture you bumped into. Because you talk to me like I'm still whole. He paused. Because when everyone else saw what I'd lost, You saw what I still had. Sophie's eyes glistened. That's not enough, she whispered. It's everything. What about Olivia? What about Marcus? What about the company and the board and the life you built? I didn't build a life. I built a cage. Daniel's expression softened. You're the first person who made me want to leave it. Sophie closed her eyes. This is insane. I know. You're going to lose everything. Not everything. She opened her eyes. What if I'm not strong enough for this? Daniel reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined. You held me together when I was breaking, he signed with his free hand. You're stronger than you know. Sophie looked down at their joined hands. If we do this, she said slowly, we do it carefully. We do it smart. Daniel nodded. And when the time comes, when you're ready to stop pretending, you tell the truth, all of it. No half measures. Deal. Sophie exhaled. Okay. Okay? She squeezed his hand. Okay. Olivia returned from a business trip 2 days later. She swept into the mansion like a storm, heels clicking, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, confirm the venue. Yes, the guest list is final. No, Daniel won't be speaking, obviously. She ended the call and found Daniel in the living room. Sophie was helping him with physical therapy exercises, gentle stretches, careful movements. Oh, good. You're working, Olivia said breezily. Sophie, make sure he's ready for a fitting tomorrow. The tuxedo needs adjustments. Fitting? Sophie asked. For the wedding, Olivia said, as if it were obvious. We moved it up 3 weeks from now. Sophie's hand stilled on Daniel's shoulder. 3 weeks? Problem? Olivia's tone sharpened. No, ma'am. Good. Olivia turned to Daniel. You'll look handsome, darling. Even if you can't say your vows, we'll make it work. The photographers will love it. The devoted bride, the strong, silent groom. She smiled. It's perfect, really. Daniel's hands curled into fists. Olivia didn't notice. She left to take another call. Sophie slowly released Daniel's shoulder. 3 weeks, she whispered. Daniel turned to face her. We don't have much time. Sophie nodded slowly. That night, they sat together in the study. Daniel pulled out a leather notebook, old, worn, filled with his handwriting from before the accident. He opened it to a blank page and wrote, They've been planning this for months. I need proof. Sophie read the words. Proof of what? Daniel wrote again. Marcus has files, financial documents, plans to restructure the company, transfer assets. Where? His office. 3rd drawer. Folder marked confidential. Sophie's eyes widened. You want me to... Daniel nodded. I can't do that. If they catch me, they won't. How do you know? Because I'll make sure they're distracted. Sophie stared at him. This is dangerous. I know. If something goes wrong, Daniel took her hand. Nothing will go wrong, but his eyes betrayed him. He was afraid too. The plan was simple. Too simple, Sophie thought, as she stood outside Marcus's office at midnight. Daniel had created the distraction, a false security alert in the East Wing that pulled Marcus and the night staff away. He'd given her 15 minutes. 15 minutes to find the files, photograph them, and disappear. Her hands trembled as she turned the doorknob. The office was dark, silent except for the hum of the computer. She moved quickly, pulling out her phone for light, finding the cabinet, 3rd drawer. Her fingers flipped through folders, contracts, tax documents, legal briefs. There. Confidential restructuring plan. She opened it, and her blood ran cold. It wasn't just restructuring, it was theft. Page after page detailed the plan. Marcus and Olivia had been siphoning funds for 8 months. Shell companies, offshore accounts, forged signatures. They were going to declare Daniel mentally incompetent, take control of his assets, and dissolve the company piece by piece. The wedding wasn't about love, it was about legal access. Sophie's hands shook as she photographed every page, emails between Marcus and Olivia. He's weaker than we thought. Push the wedding up. Once we're married, I'll have medical power of attorney. 6 months and it's done. What about the nurse? She's nobody. If she becomes a problem, we'll handle it. Sophie's stomach turned. Behind her, footsteps echoed in the hall. She froze. The door opened. Marcus stood there, expression cold. Looking for something? Sophie's mind raced. I was trying to find aspirin for Mr. Harrington. In my office. Marcus stepped inside, closing the door behind him. In a locked filing cabinet? He moved closer. How long has he been able to hear, Sophie? Her throat tightened. I don't know what... Don't insult me. His voice dropped. I've seen the way he looks at you. The way you look at him. You think I'm stupid? Sophie backed against the desk. Marcus pulled out his phone. Olivia's going to love this. The poor nurse seducing the disabled CEO, trying to steal his fortune. That's not what this is. Doesn't matter what it is. Matters what it looks like. He raised the phone. Sophie's heart pounded. Then, from the hallway, a voice. Clear, steady, unmistakable. Step away from her. Marcus froze. Sophie's breath caught. Daniel stood in the doorway, his eyes sharp, focused, aware. You, Marcus stammered. You can... Hear, Daniel finished, stepping inside. Every single word. The room fell silent. Marcus stared, phone still raised. How long? He whispered. Since the beginning. Marcus's face went pale. You've been pretending this entire time? I've been listening, Daniel said, to every lie, every insult, every plan you made to destroy me. He moved closer. I heard you laugh about my weakness. I heard you call me a cautionary tale. I heard you and Olivia plan how to carve up my company like a carcass. Marcus's jaw tightened. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Daniel's voice was ice. You thought I was broken, helpless, easy to control. He stopped inches from Marcus. You were wrong. Marcus straightened, recovering his composure. You can't prove anything. Sophie held up her phone. Actually, he can. Marcus's eyes widened. She photographed everything, Daniel said. Every document, every email, every transaction. You have no right. I have every right, Daniel said quietly. It's my company. My money, my name you've been using. Marcus's expression hardened. You think this changes anything? You think anyone will believe you? You've been pretending to be deaf for months. You'll look insane. Maybe, Daniel said, or maybe I'll look like a man who was smart enough to let his enemies reveal themselves. He pulled out his own phone. I've been recording every conversation in this house since the day I came home from the hospital. Every dinner party, every business call, every private moment you thought was safe. He pressed play. Olivia's voice filled the room. Once we're married, I'll have medical power of attorney. 6 months and it's done. Marcus's face drained of color. Daniel stopped the recording. I have hours of this, he said softly. enough to bury you both. Marcus stepped back. Daniel, listen. We can work this out. We can get out. What? Get out of my house. Daniel's voice didn't rise, but the command was absolute. You have until morning to resign. If you're still here by dawn, I'm calling the police. Marcus's hands clenched. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made, Daniel said, was trusting you. For a moment, Marcus just stood there. Then he turned and walked out. The door closed. Silence fell. Sophie exhaled, her whole body shaking. Daniel turned to her. Are you okay? She nodded, then shook her head, then laughed, a broken, breathless sound. I thought he was going to... I know. Daniel crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. Sophie collapsed against him, trembling. I was so scared, she whispered. So was I. She pulled back, looking up at him. You came for me. Always. Their eyes held, and for the first time, there was no pretending, no walls, just truth. Olivia arrived home at 2 a.m. She found Daniel in the living room, waiting. Sophie stood beside him. What's going on? Olivia asked, setting down her purse. Why is she still here? Sit down, Olivia. Something in his tone made her stop. Daniel? I said sit down. She sat slowly, eyes narrowing. Can you hear me? I've always been able to hear you. Olivia's expression flickered. Confusion, then realization, then something colder. How long? Long enough. She laughed, sharp, bitter. This is rich. You've been faking this whole time? I wasn't faking, Daniel said quietly. I was listening, learning who people really are when they think no one's watching. And what did you learn? Her voice dripped with sarcasm. That you never loved me. The words hung in the air. Olivia's smile faltered. That's not... You loved what I represented, Daniel continued. The status, the wealth, the access to a world you wanted to control. He pulled out his phone. I have recordings, Olivia. Every conversation, every plan, every moment you thought you were safe. Her face went white. You recorded me? I protected myself. Olivia stood, hands shaking. You can't use those, it's illegal. Not in this state, Sophie said quietly. Single-party consent, he had every right. Olivia's eyes snapped to Sophie. You, she hissed, this is because of you. No, Daniel said, this is because of you. Because you saw a man in pain and decided to exploit him. I stayed, Olivia's voice cracked. I stayed when you were broken. You stayed because you saw an opportunity. Tears filled Olivia's eyes, real ones this time. I did love you, she whispered. Once. Maybe, Daniel said, but not enough, not when it mattered. He gestured toward the door. The engagement is over. I want you out by morning. Olivia stood frozen. You're really doing this? I am. For her. Olivia gestured at Sophie. For some nobody nurse who... Don't, Daniel said, voice hard. Don't talk about her. Olivia laughed bitterly. You're throwing away everything for a fantasy. No, Daniel said. I'm choosing something real for the first time in my life. Olivia grabbed her purse. You'll regret this. I already regret ever meeting you. She flinched, then turned and walked out, heels clicking against marble one last time. The door slammed. Silence. Sophie let out a shaky breath. It's over, she whispered. Daniel nodded. It's over. But as they stood there in the empty mansion, surrounded by the wreckage of his old life, neither of them felt victorious, just exhausted and uncertain of what came next. The mansion felt different the next morning, quieter, but not in the oppressive way it had been before. This was a clean quiet, like the air after a storm passes, when everything feels washed and new. Daniel stood in his study watching the sun rise through the window. Sophie found him there, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked softly. He shook his head. She handed him a cup and stood beside him, both of them looking out at the garden. "Marcus resigned an hour ago," Daniel said. "Sent an email. Very formal. Very cold. And Olivia? Gone. Took her things before dawn." Sophie nodded slowly. "How do you feel?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Empty," he finally said, but not in a bad way, like space has opened up. Room to breathe. He turned to her. "I spent 3 years building a life with the wrong person, surrounding myself with people who saw me as a means to an end." His voice dropped. "I don't want to make that mistake again." Sophie's breath caught. "Daniel—" "I know what you're going to say," he interrupted gently. "That this is too fast, that I'm rebounding, that I'm confusing gratitude with something else." He set down his coffee and took her hand. "But I've had months to think, months of listening, watching, understanding the difference between someone who sees me as useful and someone who sees me as human." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "You see me, Sophie, and I see you. That's not confusion. That's clarity." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. What if this doesn't work? What if it does?" Daniel countered softly. Sophie laughed, shaky and breathless. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. It's everything else that's complicated." He pulled her closer. "But we'll figure it out, together." Sophie looked up at him, searching his face. "You really mean that?" "Every word." For a moment they just stood there, the morning light spilling through the windows, wrapping them in gold. Then Sophie rose on her toes and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, like a question finally being answered. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Okay," Sophie whispered. "Okay. Okay." The weeks that followed were strange. Daniel began the process of restructuring his company, removing the people Marcus had planted, investigating the financial damage, rebuilding trust with his board. It was exhausting, but Sophie was there, not as his nurse anymore, as his partner. She moved through his world with quiet grace, never trying to change him, never asking for anything he wasn't ready to give. She just existed beside him, and that was enough. One evening, they sat in the garden, watching the sunset. "I've been thinking," Daniel said. Sophie looked at him. "About what?" "About what comes next. For the company. For us." Sophie's heart skipped. "I don't want to live in this mansion anymore," Daniel continued. "It feels like a museum. Beautiful, but empty." He turned to her. "I want to build something new, something that feels like home." "Where?" Daniel smiled. "Anywhere you want." Sophie's breath caught. "Daniel, you can't just—" "Why not?" he asked. "I've spent my entire life building things for other people, companies, wealth, status. None of it made me happy." He took her hand. You make me happy. Sophie's eyes glistened. I don't need a mansion, she said softly. I don't need wealth or status or... I know, Daniel said. That's why I'm asking. What do you need? Sophie looked out at the garden, thinking. Peace, she finally said. Something small, something quiet, somewhere we can just be. Daniel nodded. Then that's what we'll find. 3 months later, they stood in front of a small cottage by the sea. It wasn't grand, it wasn't luxurious, it was perfect. White walls, blue shutters, a small garden that needed tending, the sound of waves crashing in the distance. This is it, Sophie whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand. You're sure? I'm sure. They moved in the following week. Daniel kept a small office in the city, enough to manage his remaining business interests, but most of his time was spent here, with her, learning how to live again. They fell into routines, morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks on the beach, evenings cooking together, laughing when Daniel burned the pasta or Sophie oversalted the soup. It was ordinary, and it was everything. One night, 6 months after leaving the mansion, Sophie found Daniel sitting on the beach, staring at the ocean. She sat beside him, wrapping a blanket around both their shoulders. What are you thinking about? She asked. The accident, he said quietly. Sophie tensed. Do you regret it? What you did? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I regret the pain it caused, he said. The deception. The time it took to find the truth. He turned to her. But I don't regret what I learned. About people. About myself. He paused. About you. Sophie leaned her head on his shoulder. I used to think love was supposed to be grand, she said softly. Big gestures, dramatic moments, the kind of thing you see in movies. And now? Now I think love is this, she said, sitting on a beach, sharing a blanket, knowing someone sees you, really sees you, and chooses to stay anyway. Daniel pressed a kiss to her hair. I'll always choose you. Sophie smiled. Even when I burn the pasta. Especially then. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the waves roll in. A year after the accident, Daniel received a letter. It was from Olivia. Sophie found him in his office, holding it, expression unreadable. What does it say? She asked carefully. Daniel handed it to her. The letter was short. Daniel, I've spent the past year thinking about what happened, about who I became, about the choices I made. I won't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now what I lost, what I threw away. You were right. I loved what you represented, not who you were. I hope you've found someone who sees you the way I never could. Olivia. Sophie set the letter down. How do you feel? Daniel exhaled slowly. Sad, he said. Not for me. For her. She spent so much time chasing something she thought would make her happy, and in the end she ended up with nothing. Do you miss her? No, Daniel said honestly. I miss the idea of what I thought we had, but that was never real. He pulled Sophie onto his lap. This is real. Sophie wrapped her arms around his neck. Yes, she whispered. It is. That evening, they burned the letter, not out of anger, but as a symbol, letting go of the past, making room for the future. They stood on the beach, watching the flames consume the paper, the ashes scattering in the wind. Do you think she'll be okay? Sophie asked. Eventually, Daniel said. People like Olivia always land on their feet. And people like us. Daniel smiled. We learn to fly. Sophie laughed, the sound carrying across the water. And as the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they turned back toward the cottage, toward home, toward the life they were building together. One quiet, ordinary, perfect day at a time. 2 years after the accident, Sophie woke to find Daniel's side of the bed empty. She found him on the porch, watching the sunrise, a notebook in his lap. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. He looked up, smiled. "Just thinking. About everything." He closed the notebook. "Where I was, where I am now." Sophie sat beside him, tucking herself against his side. "Any regrets?" "Only one." She pulled back to look at him. "What?" "That I didn't fire Marcus sooner," Daniel said with a slight smile. Sophie laughed softly, then grew serious. "Do you miss it? The company? The power?" Daniel considered the question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Not the power itself, but the purpose. Building something, creating, making decisions that mattered. You still do that." "Do I?" "You helped renovate the community center," Sophie said. "You're mentoring young entrepreneurs. You funded 3 startups last month alone." She squeezed his hand. "You're still building, Daniel, just differently." He pulled her closer. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." "That's not true." "It is," he interrupted gently. "You taught me how to see people again, how to trust, how to believe that not everyone wants something from me." Sophie's eyes glistened. "You taught yourself that. I just reminded you." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Then, thank you for the reminder." That afternoon, a car pulled up to the cottage. Sophie was in the garden tending the tomatoes when she heard voices. She looked up to see a woman stepping out of a black sedan, elegant, mid-50s, carrying herself with the quiet authority of someone used to being listened to. Daniel emerged from the cottage, stopping short when he saw her. "Margaret." The woman smiled. "Hello, Daniel." Sophie wiped her hands on her jeans and approached cautiously. Margaret extended her hand. "You must be Sophie. I'm Margaret Chen. I was on Daniel's board before everything." Sophie shook her hand. "It's nice to meet you." Margaret turned back to Daniel. "May I speak with you? Both of you, actually." They sat on the porch, iced tea sweating in glasses between them. "I'll be direct," Margaret said. "The company's struggling." Daniel's expression didn't change. "I'm aware. The new leadership, the people you put in place, they're competent, ethical, but they lack vision." She leaned forward. "The company needs you, Daniel." "No," he said immediately. "Hear me out." "I said no, Margaret." "Not full-time," she continued. "Just as an advisor, strategic guidance. The board trusts you. The shareholders trust you." They trusted Marcus too. That was different. "Was it?" Daniel's voice hardened. "I built that company from nothing. I poured everything into it. And when I needed it most, it almost destroyed me." "Because you surrounded yourself with the wrong people," Margaret said gently. "But that's changed now. You've changed." She glanced at Sophie. "And you're not alone anymore." Daniel was quiet. Sophie spoke carefully. "What exactly are you asking?" "For Daniel to consult," Margaret said. "Once a month, maybe twice. Help guide major decisions. Mentor the new leadership team. And in return, the company survives, thrives even, and Daniel gets to see his life's work continue." Sophie looked at Daniel. His jaw was tight, but his eyes held something else. Longing. "Can we think about it?" Sophie asked. Margaret nodded. "Of course, but don't take too long. The company needs an answer within the month." She stood, leaving her card on the table. "It was lovely to meet you, Sophie." After she left, Sophie and Daniel sat in silence. "You want to do it," Sophie finally said. "I don't, Daniel." She turned to face him. "I can see it. That look in your eyes when she talked about the company." He exhaled slowly. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I built a life here. With you. Away from all that pressure and politics and you're bored." Daniel flinched. "That's not—" "It's okay," Sophie said softly. "I'm not angry. I'm just observant." She took his hand. "You love building things, Daniel. Creating. Leading. That's who you are. And pretending you don't need that anymore is just another form of pretending." Daniel looked at her, something raw in his expression. "I don't want to lose this, us." "You won't," Sophie said, "unless you start resenting me for keeping you from something you love." "I could never." "You could," she said, "not intentionally. But over time, if you feel trapped here, even in paradise." She squeezed his hand. "I fell in love with a man who saw possibilities everywhere, who built empires and took risks and believed he could change things. That man was arrogant, blind—" "That man was brilliant," Sophie corrected. "He just forgot to balance ambition with humanity. But you've learned that now." She smiled. "So why not use it?" Daniel spent the next week thinking. He walked the beach, sat in his office, made lists of pros and cons. Sophie gave him space, but she watched him carefully. She saw the moment he made his decision, the way his shoulders straightened, the light returning to his eyes. "I want to do it," he said one evening over dinner. Sophie smiled. "I know. But with conditions." "Such as?" "Twice a month maximum, all meetings remote unless absolutely necessary. And I want you involved." Sophie blinked. "Me?" "You have better instincts about people than anyone I've ever met," Daniel said. "I want your input on hiring decisions, on leadership, on company culture." "Daniel, I'm not qualified." "You're exactly qualified," he said. "You see people, Sophie, really see them. That's what the company needs." Sophie stared at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely." She laughed, bewildered. "This is insane." "Probably. I have no business experience." "Neither did I when I started." Sophie shook her head, but she was smiling. "Okay. Okay? Okay." Margaret was thrilled. The board was cautious but hopeful. Daniel dove back in carefully, reviewing proposals, attending virtual meetings, offering guidance without taking control. And Sophie, to her own surprise, found she had a talent for it. She couldn't read financial statements like Daniel could, but she could read people. She knew when someone was passionate versus performative. She knew when an idea had heart versus just profit potential. Together, they made decisions that slowly turned the company around. Not back to what it was, into something better, something more human. 6 months into his consulting role, Daniel came home exhausted. Sophie found him on the couch, tie loosened, eyes closed. She sat beside him, running her fingers through his hair. "Rough day?" "Long day," he corrected. "But good." He opened his eyes. "We finalized the profit-sharing plan. Every employee, not just executives, gets a percentage of annual profits. Sophie smiled. That's wonderful. It's going to cost us millions. Worth it? Absolutely. He pulled her down beside him. You were right, he said. I needed this. Not the power or the money, the purpose. And us? Sophie asked quietly. Are we okay? Daniel turned to face her. We're more than okay. He kissed her softly. You gave me back more than my hearing, Sophie. You gave me back my life, the ability to feel, to trust, to build something that matters. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. You did that yourself. No, Daniel said. We did it together. That night, as they lay in bed, Sophie spoke into the darkness. Do you ever think about the accident? Sometimes. Do you wish it never happened? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. If it hadn't happened, he said slowly, I'd probably still be engaged to Olivia, still surrounded by people who saw me as a transaction, still building a life that looked perfect, but felt empty. He turned to her. So no, I don't wish it never happened. Sophie traced patterns on his chest, even though it hurt. Even though it hurt, Daniel confirmed. Sometimes you have to break before you can heal, fall before you can stand differently. He caught her hand, brought it to his lips. I fell, and you caught me. Sophie smiled in the darkness. We caught each other. 5 years after the accident, Daniel woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. He smiled before he even opened his eyes. Sophie was cooking. He found her in the kitchen, windows open to let in the sea breeze, smoke rising from a pan. I swear I followed the recipe this time, she said without turning around. Daniel leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, grinning. What was it supposed to be? Pancakes. What is it now? Creative disaster. She turned, spatula in hand, flour on her cheek. Don't laugh. I'm not laughing. You're smiling. That's different. Sophie pointed the spatula at him. You're lucky I love you. I am, Daniel agreed, crossing the room to kiss her. Very lucky. He tasted coffee and sugar on her lips. How about I make breakfast, he suggested, and you sit down. I can cook. You can, he said diplomatically. But should you? Sophie swatted his arm, laughing. Fine, but I'm making dinner. Deal. They ate on the porch, watching the waves. This had become their ritual, mornings together before the world intruded. Before video calls and emails, and the careful balance they'd built between Daniel's consulting work and their life here. Margaret called yesterday, Daniel said, spreading jam on toast. About? The acquisition. It's official. We're merging with Chen Technologies. Sophie's eyes widened. That's huge. It is. How do you feel? Daniel considered. Good, actually. Margaret's vision aligns with what we've been building. Employee ownership, ethical practices, long-term sustainability over short-term profit. He smiled. Turns out you can build an empire and keep your soul. Sophie squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you. We did this together. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Sophie looked out at the ocean, something shifting in her expression. What is it? Daniel asked. She was quiet for a moment. I was thinking about Olivia's letter, the one from years ago. Daniel waited. She said she hoped you'd found someone who sees you the way she never could. You do. I know, Sophie said softly. But I was also thinking, maybe she finally sees herself now too. Maybe losing everything taught her what really matters. Maybe. Do you think people can really change? Sophie asked. Daniel thought about the man he used to be, arrogant, guarded, measuring worth in profit margins and quarterly reports. I think people can choose to change, he said. The question is whether they're willing to do the work. And you were? I had good motivation. He pulled her closer. You make me want to be better. Sophie's eyes glistened. You were always good, Daniel. You just forgot how to see it. Later that afternoon, a package arrived. Sophie found Daniel in his office, staring at the small box on his desk. What is it? I don't know yet. He opened it carefully. Inside was a small wooden frame holding a quote, "Sometimes silence is the loudest truth." Below it, a note in familiar handwriting. I learned that the hard way. I hope you've learned to listen to the right voices now. Daniel stared at it for a long moment. Sophie read it over his shoulder. Are you okay? Yeah, Daniel said quietly. I think I am. He set the frame aside. She's right, though. I did learn to listen, to the right voices, to the silence between words. To what people show me rather than what they say. He turned to Sophie. And everything I heard told me you were the truest thing in my life. Sophie's breath caught. Daniel. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Sophie's heart stopped. I've been carrying this for 6 months, Daniel said, waiting for the right moment. But I realized something. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, emerald, surrounded by tiny diamonds. Every moment with you is the right moment. Tears spilled down Sophie's cheeks. Sophie, Daniel said, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, you saw me when I was invisible. You heard me when I was silent. You loved me when I forgot how to love myself. He took her hand. Will you marry me? Sophie couldn't speak. She nodded, then laughed, then cried. Yes, she finally whispered. Yes. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her like it was the first time. Like it was the last time. Like it was every moment in between. They were married 3 months later, not in a grand cathedral or a luxury venue, on the beach at sunset with 20 people who mattered. Sophie wore a simple white dress. Daniel wore linen pants and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up. There were no photographers, no press releases, just the ocean, the sky, and the people they loved. When it came time for vows, Daniel spoke first. I spent most of my life pretending, he said. Pretending to be confident when I was uncertain. Pretending to be strong when I was breaking. Pretending to know what I wanted when I was completely lost. He took Sophie's hands. And then I pretended to be deaf. I thought it would help me find the truth about others. But what I really found was the truth about myself. His voice cracked. That I was surrounded by everything and had nothing. That I'd built an empire but forgotten how to live. He squeezed her hands. You didn't fix me, Sophie. You reminded me that I was never broken, just lost, and you helped me find my way home. Sophie was crying openly now. I promised to never pretend with you, to always tell you the truth, even when it's hard, to see you, hear you, and choose you every day for the rest of my life. Sophie wiped her tears and smiled. I'm supposed to have eloquent vows prepared, she said, but all I keep thinking is, you heard me. She laughed through tears. When I thought you couldn't, when I whispered things I never would have said out loud, you heard every word. She touched his face. You heard my hope, my fear, my belief that you were still in there, still fighting, still worth every moment of care. Her voice steadied. And when you finally spoke, you chose truth, not revenge, not bitterness, truth and love and me. She smiled. So, I promise to always speak to you like you can hear me, to see you like you're visible, to love you like you're irreplaceable, because you are. They exchanged rings, kissed, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, their small group cheered. Years later, Daniel would think back on that moment. The feeling of Sophie's hand in his, the sound of the ocean, the absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. He'd lost everything to find it. His company, his fiancée, his carefully constructed life. But he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. Peace, purpose, love that didn't need to be performed or proven, just lived. On their 5th anniversary, Sophie found Daniel on the beach again, notebook in hand. Writing, she asked. Remembering. She sat beside him. What are you remembering? The day you first walked into my mansion, he said. How you spoke to me like I mattered, like I was still whole, even when everyone else had already written me off. He closed the notebook. I was so angry then, at Olivia, at Marcus, at myself for being blind to who they really were. And now I'm grateful. Sophie raised an eyebrow. For the betrayal? For the clarity, Daniel corrected. If they hadn't shown me who they were, I might never have noticed who you were. He pulled her close. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing that ever happens to you. Sophie rested her head on his shoulder. Do you think Olivia ever found what she was looking for? I hope so, Daniel said honestly. Not for her sake, for mine, because I don't want to be someone who wishes pain on people, even people who hurt me. That's growth. That's you, he said. You taught me that happiness isn't a zero-sum game, that someone else finding peace doesn't diminish mine. They sat in silence, watching the sun set. If you could go back, Sophie asked quietly, and change what happened, prevent the accident, avoid the pain, would you? Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to her. No. No? Because every choice, every mistake, every moment of pain led me here, to you, to this life. He kissed her temple. And I wouldn't trade this for anything. Sophie smiled. Not even for a perfectly cooked pancake? Daniel laughed, deep, genuine, free. Not even for that. As darkness fell, they walked back to the cottage hand in hand. Inside, the lights were warm. Music played softly. Their life, small, simple, perfect, waited. And for the first time in years, Daniel thought about the man he used to be, the one who measured worth in zeros, who built walls instead of bridges, who heard words but never listened. That man was gone. In his place was someone quieter, wiser, softer around the edges, but stronger at the core. Someone who understood that the richest life isn't built on what you own. It's built on who sees you when you're silent, who hears you when you're lost, who chooses you when you have nothing left to offer but yourself. Sophie squeezed his hand. Come on, she said. I promised you dinner, remember? Should I be worried? Probably. Daniel laughed and followed her inside. Into the warmth, into the light, into the life he'd found by losing everything else. And as the door closed behind them, The ocean whispered against the shore. Constant, eternal, true. Just like the love they'd built. One honest word at a time. If this story touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of love and redemption. Because some riches can't be bought. They're earned by the heart. Would you have had the courage to listen like Daniel did? Let me know in the comments below.